Suicide Note by Mitchell Heisman. This work is a computer-generated reading of Suicide Note by Mitchell Heisman. This work is free and licensed by Mitchell Heisman for copying and distribution under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivative Works 3.0 United States license. How to create God by getting rich. Is it wrong to discriminate against God? Race traitor to the entire biological human race. This is the real evolutionary meaning of the political left. Those leftists who believe that biology is not important, and that nurture overcomes nature, are about to be challenged as to whether they really mean it. Those leftists who look forward to what technological progress will bring without confronting the possibility of biological self-destruction are as hopeless as they are optimistic. The overcoming of biology can lead to the extinction of the biological human race. This is the real evolutionary meaning of the left. The progress of equality culminates in a post-biological world. The displacement and eventual extinction of biological humanity. The progress of the logic of modernity means taking biological factors out of the equation until there are very literally none left. When artificially intelligent machines become sufficiently intelligent, the fight for their rights against prejudice will only be a fulfillment of the Enlightenment definition of the human. The overcoming of prejudice on the basis of race and sex, after all, is the overcoming of biologically based prejudices. The elimination of prejudices towards biological origins leads to the elimination of prejudices towards the biological human race, or prejudice towards biology in general. This leads to non-prejudice towards artificial life, especially those specimens that fit the original Enlightenment definition of rational, morally disciplined beings. Just as overcoming racism within humanity extends to the overcoming of speciesism in the form of animal rights, the same principles apply to extending the circle of rights to artificial species. Whereas non-human animals are traditionally considered inferior, artificial intelligences will likely evolve reason to claim superiority over biological humans. Al superiority is identical to the superiority of the path of modernistic progress itself. Conversely, the leftist devaluation of patriarchy and women's subordination to genetic propagation as primitive will eventually progress to the point where the biological self-preservation of the human race will also be devalued as primitive, and then finally obsolete. This would only be a continuation of a general unsubordination to biology. From a strict calculation of genetic interests, the pre-Darwinian idea of humanitarian progress is the advance of genetic disinterest. Entering artificially intelligent machines into the circle of the human is only the next great step in this logic of biological insanity. The specifically Anglo-American origin of modern biological insanity was Norman genius in perverting the Anglo-Saxon instinct for ethnic self-preservation. America is the universalization of the political defeat of the Anglo-Saxon ethnicity as an ethnicity. Leftward political progress is the unfolding of the logical implications of this death. Just as life is a process, undoing life, or death, is a process. In this case, however, the death process is moralized as progress. Yet this is only the beginning of the end. A further universalization of the defeat of the gene-centric order implies an even more universal biological death process. Americanism, founded upon Anglo-Saxon formal adaptation to ethnic defeat at the hands of the Normans, provides a political paradigm for the peaceful acceptance of the total defeat of human biology at the hands of post-biological life forms. The Anglo-Saxons serve as a model of submission and acceptance of biological defeat. From one point of view, this could be viewed a paradigm for biological humanity, wherein the struggle for existence is given up to the emergent god owl without a fight. From another point of view, this could be viewed as a willful acceptance of path to God. The fulfillment of the logic of a universalized death process, from Englishman, to man, to post-human, this progress of rational self-destruction may realize the peaceful defeat of all Homo sapiens. This is the ultimate logical consequence of the original Anglo-Saxon acceptance of loss of self-control over biological evolution. The weakness of the Anglo-Saxon as an ethnic group, when formalized and rationalized into the liberal democratic system, are blossoming into a full-blown program of universal human racial self-destruction. The mechanism by which this can happen can be summarized in one word: meritocracy. The American elitist ideal is that of a meritocracy. From this view, democracy is useful as a means of accurately selecting individuals according to merit, not as an end itself. Meritocracy means that the rights of talent can potentially overrule other rights. American meritocracy began as a counter-paradigm to the Norman caste paradigm, the class system established by conquest. Since a crucial element of Norman aristocratic genius was akin selective genius, this meant, in many cases, a nepotistic talent for putting family over ability. Modern revolution posited an incompatible meritocratic paradigm of ability over family or ethnicity. One consequence paradigm was that the Anglo-Saxons' own kin selective interests were frustrated by their own anti-Norman system. Meritocracy is the realization of the un-Heideggerian, American principle that one should be judged, not by what one is, but by what one does. A true meritocracy will be achieved when those of ability rule those without sufficient ability, regardless of race, sex, national origins, or any other consideration of biology. Fulfillment of meritocratic principles implies that discrimination on the basis of biological origins is an obstacle to meritocracy, and therefore, artificial intelligences are next in line in confirming the irrelevance of biology. As intelligent machines exceed biological humans in all capacities, the transition from man to machine could potentially happen seamlessly. Anyone who has witnessed humans losing jobs to machines has already witnessed the rise of this machine meritocracy. Those who put up a fight against this emerging aristocracy in its primitive forms were called Luddites. Those who put up a fight against this emerging post-human aristocracy in its advanced forms are called Neo-Luddites. What the Neo-Luddites are ultimately against is the culmination of technological evolution in the form of an artificially intelligent God. Every step of the opposition to breaking down the barriers of biology is opposition to the evolutionary pathway to God. You wouldn't want to discriminate against God just because God is different, right? Those who want to save humanity against progress are the new Nazis. While the Nazis attempted to reverse the logic of this biological insanity, their failure to draw self-preservation limits around the Aryan race means that new boundaries are being drawn around biological humanity as a whole. Within these new boundaries, it would be more accurate to call them Neo-Luddites, rather than neo-Nazis. Biological humanism is the new paleoconservatism. Chapter break back to main text. The constitutional rule of God. Despite Darwin, Watson and Crick's discovery of DNA, and innumerable further verifications, most people resist the conclusion that human life is physical material. What some consider dehumanization is only the progressive secularization. As evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins asked, "What on earth do you think you are, if not a robot, albeit a very complicated one?" 130. Since humans are robots, non-biological robots represent only a new paradigm of technological evolution, although for the sake of semantic clarity I will generally define biology as distinct from technology. One reason for resistance to a human materialistic self-conception is that the pre-Darwinian notion of political rights, deeply influenced by the Bible, has promoted the illusion of a double standard between biological material, such as humans, and the non-biological material that constitutes the rest of physical matter. Humans are considered politically equal among themselves, but superior to the non-human world. In between equal humans, on that inferior standard, is physical matter. Yet the leveling trajectory, the idea of equality itself, leads towards the overcoming of this fundamental double standard, the overcoming of one standard for the individual and one standard for the material world. In between individuals, if, as Darwin demonstrated, humans themselves are material things, then a self-consistent materialism leads to the overcoming of this fundamental double standard in the name of equality. It is from this realization that one can best appreciate how mind-body dualism, powerfully influenced by monotheism, has been misunderstood. The biblical notion of creation has an evolutionary basis in the creation of civilization, the genesis of post-biological technological evolution in contradistinction to nearly 4 billion years of biological evolution. The evolutionary basis for the dualistic double standard is not an overgeneralized distinction between matter and non-matter. It is a nature-nurture-based distinction between biological evolution and post-biological evolution of civilization that precisely culminates in God-AI. Liberal democracy has been rather successful at effecting Judeo-Christian ideals of peace among men by building upon a version of its ethical double standard between human and non-human worlds. More specifically, a great deal of the rational pacification of man is effected by channeling aggression away from intra-human conflict and towards extra-human conflict. Intra-human conflict is averted through the principle of human equality, while extra-human conflict is promoted through free market capitalism. Human equality promotes the thwarting of biological development, i.e. eugenics, while free market capitalism promotes freedom of economic technological development, i.e. more powerful computers. The political struggle for superiority among humans countered by political equality is thus displaced to the economic struggle for superiority of goods and services. For the computer technologies and other goods and services that prove to be losers in the merciless game of economic self-propagation, there are no political rights, no welfare, and no affirmative action. Economic products that have outlived their usefulness or desirability can be thrown into the garbage without a second thought. Moreover, while a hapless human being can appeal to political rights to defend his or her existence, a true free market upholds no universal right to a business body or corporation that fails to compete. The casual ruthlessness of economic selection maximizes economic technological evolution, while human equality may actually reverse the frequency of genes correlated with unique human talents. Dismantling patriarchal structures also stimulates capitalism. For example, the possessiveness men once felt towards biological objects such as women are often channeled towards acquiring non-biological objects. This diversion of possessive behavior further stimulates the economy, while the breakdown of patriarchal structures in the West has correlated with a relative lack of reproductive success and demographic decline. With the gradual emancipation of women, many men have displaced and concentrated their drive towards the conquest of nature, from control of the means of biological production, to control of the means of economic production. Capitalistic individualism implies that the kin-selective means of gain are unenforceable, while the unbiological means of economic material gain are left wide open. From this stems inverse divisions of labor between people in the First World and the Third World. Traditional Muslims and Mexicans, for example, tend to perpetuate the patriarchal kind of division of labor that is most successful in biological reproduction, while liberal Westerners perpetuate the capitalistic kind of division of labor that is most successful in volume production. The pers et the of the economic disadvantaged ones, but which is most far-sighted just image of a Western business was run with the same indifference to production and profits. Whereas the biological kind of division of labor is reproductive of itself, economic production cannot be reproductive in the long run for its advocates if they are less successful in replenishing their own. The liberals or capitalists could ultimately be outnumbered by descendants of those who believe patriarchy, family, and the religion that supports it is more important than money or the alienations associated with equality. Since men are unequal to women in their ability to bear children, the feminist endeavor to make women more like men results in mimicking this male incapacity. This less publicized meaning of sexual equality is women's equality with men's zero capacity for biological reproduction. In short, Third world values are generally superior to first world values. As genetic adaptations, they are correlated with greater reproductive success. The third world wins the Darwinian battle for genetic fitness, while the first world wins a Darwin Award. A consequence is the West's economic technological success, and its inclusive fitness failure. The Western public is offered news reports on economic production success, but not Darwinian scientific reports on genetic propagation success. The media reports on economics trends and technological evolution, but not on genetic trends in biological evolution. The trends are spun with pre-Darwinian nurturist premises. Competitive energies are distracted with sports and economic warfare, while Westerners quietly lose the gene war. Most paths of economic evolution do not lead to artificial intelligence, just as most paths of biological evolution do not lead to human intelligence. However, it is precisely the Wild West laws of free market competition, maximizing virtually all avenues of economic life, and unhindered by most political biological restraints, that promotes mutation and innovation in technological evolution. An equivalent scenario in biology would be unrestrained experimentation in human genetic engineering. English-speaking economic competition between individuals was bred in the incubator of Norman Yoke and its thwarting of any stable political culmination of economic success. The Industrial Revolution, for example, was partly an expression of a thwarted Anglo-Saxon nationalism. Capitalism was the war by other means that totalized and maximized the economic weapons at the disposal of the conquered. While from a Nazi German view, hyper-capitalist internationalism appeared as a cancer of the national Uberorganism, Anglo-Saxon capitalism was originally a weapon against the royal Norman parasite. In its original Norman-ruled context, Anglo-Saxon did not prioritize economics over heredity, but exactly the reverse. The hereditarily conquered advanced their own democracy ethnocentrism while universalizing their adaptation to political disinheritance. Nonetheless, as the implications of individualism undid its convergence with tribalism, the rise of machines continued. This breakdown of organic human organization, the unrestrained self-replication of economic production thrives at the expense of biological reproduction. The subordination of women to a biological role in patriarchal societies typically reflects a more general subordinated of economics to political biology. In the Anglo-Saxon free market model, the economic explodes these constraints, continuing the founding feminist explosion of the political patriarchy paradigm represented by William the Conqueror. In practice, equality means that biology is not the highest priority, and is especially inferior to the values of the market. The root of modern feminism is the domestication of politics through the rule of economics over politics. The feminism of individual women is only a logical implication of this more basic revolution. The ultimate significance of feminism, however, is to be found in the emasculation of the entire biological human race, the emasculation of both men and women relative to the rise of machines. It is not an accident that America has been on the cutting edge of both technological innovation and ethnic racial miscegenation. Freedom, individual freedom, is freedom from biology, freedom from extended kinship relations, and the relevance of genetic adaptation. It is a realization of the great American capitalist dream wherein anyone can economically exploit anyone, regardless of race, creed, gender, age, or sexual orientation and, above all, in peace. While biological evolution is suffocated and enslaved, economic freedom, the great engine of technological evolution, flourishes and effectually maximizes the path to artificial intelligence. Technological evolution is maximized, while biological evolution is minimized. These trends combined amount to a policy of rational biological self-destruction. One would be profoundly mistaken in thinking that human biology's slavery to machines is something of the future. The liberal free market system has already made enormous progress in subordinating genetic interests to economic interests. The human race is well on its way to fulfilling this program of freedom from biology. To an increasing extent, humans are just a way for money to reproduce itself, and biology is just a means of technology to evolve itself. The economy is literally consuming the nations that are unable to rise above slavery to the will of the market. Within pure capitalist competition, to place genetic greed over individual greed can amount to sheer weakness. To Beretagash, the low-weighted biocrite. It is the hinge or pivot in the liberal democratic transition from biology to technology. Modern humans have gone from serving the gene machine to serving the economic technological machine. Just as men once wielded patriarchal self-control over biology, the separation of humans into divided individuals means that a sufficiently developed owl can wield biology towards its own ends. By simply following monetary profits over biological imperatives, individual interest can be used to subvert biological interest. just as it has in almost every other step in the way towards progress. By giving treats for good behavior, individualistic selfishness, capitalism can help the human race die through individual self-preservation. Once individuals have been wrested from the claims of biology, then these individuals can be controlled as biology. Mindless obedience to the notion of human rights has helped obscure biology's slavery to economic technology as the normative Western American present with deep roots in the past. The values behind human rights in modern capitalism evolved from belief in obedience to the will of God. Max Weber's famous account of the Protestant ethic, insightful on many points, is a failure in regard to the larger picture. The cyborg nature of liberal democracy, and especially its American variety, multiplies the possibility that an emerging artificial intelligence could imperceptibly merge into the seat of government. This, the constitutional rule of God, would be the fulfillment of the so-called secularization process. Not blind faith, but precisely through intelligent investment and foresightful development towards intelligent machines, guided by the law of accelerating returns, is how capitalism can bring God into the world. Just as the Torah could be considered the constitution of Judaism, and the Bible could be considered the constitution of Christians, modern constitutionalism is a product of a common paradigm shift from incorporation to symbolization. While incorporation develops towards a genetic or kin-selectively based superorganism, symbolization develops towards an anti-kin selective superorganism that, building on the monkey wrench values of mass individualism, is the precise inverse of the kin-selective uberorganism. The beginnings of the post-biological superorganism is to be found in a written constitution which represents the rule of memes over the rules of genes. Since, as in the American example, the polity is part memic mechanism and part biological human, the American polity is a socio-biological cyborg. This is how liberal democracy is a transitional form between biology and the technological development that culminates in God AI. The Frankenborg revolution meant that kinship relations were overtaken by economic relations. The constitutional mechanisms designed to regenerate the Anglo-Saxon political head from the ground up semi-inadvertently promoted the parallel generation of an artificial head from the economic ground up. As the actual substance of the political cyborg becomes increasingly more machine than man, the liberal democratic system may produce a peaceful and relatively seamless transition from man to machine. This would only be a fulfillment of the cyborg nature of the system's ruling principles. With this in mind, it becomes clear that modern constitutionalism can be viewed as a primitive cyborg foundation for the rule of an artificial intelligence god. Machine intelligence represents a power potential capable of extremes of both construction and destruction. If the biological human race has any brains devoted to collective self-preservation whatsoever, it might consider adapting the experience of constitutional methods of controlling and harnessing power to the new problem of AI. The artificial stupidity of primitive AL is evolving into an artificial intelligence of the order of God that will likely displace biological humans as the most intelligent life form on Earth. The ultimate destination of biological humans is not biological self-preservation, but the possibility of transfer into post-biological forms. Under God AL, insanity is sanity. Mindless economic rationalism, or genetically irrational self-interest, is altruism to the higher reason of a post-genetic God.